What's up, welcome back, Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Sentimental Value, the new comedy drama film from Joachim Trier, starring Renate, Reinsve, Stellan, Skarsgård, and Elle Fanning. This film premiered back at Cannes earlier this year and won the Grand Prix award, the second place award at the festival, and is the official Norwegian entry for Best International Feature Film at the Oscars this year. And it is almost assuredly a lock to get that nomination, and we expect to get a Best Picture nomination as well because this film is excellent. And of course, it's the follow-up from Joachim Trier following his 2021 film, The Worst Person in the World, also starring Reinsve. And to me, that was my introduction to Trier. That was my introduction to Reinsve. Of course, both Norwegian film stalwarts at this point. That was a film I liked quite a bit. I think it also made a lot of noise given that it came out during the COVID box office. But I think it's one of the lasting films of that period that has really resonated with people, and I expect Sentimental Value to garner a similar reception with others. Sentimental Value is a very compelling and powerful drama film. Joachim Trier is able to communicate a deep and layered depiction of what it means to be connected to your parents, the limitations of parental love, and even deeper, understanding who you are. The characters in this film, particularly Renate Reinsve's lead performance, Stellan Skarsgård's towering supporting performance. These feel like real people. These feel like impactful conversations. Just an impeccable script, impeccable acting. Elle Fanning also a really strong supporting performance that's very important to the storytelling here. The film has a methodical script that sets up its character growth, uses its core setting of this generational family home to teach you things about these characters so that when plot happens, that change, those dynamics really land with the audience. It's definitely one of my favorite films of the year. I think visually right away, I think there's two key sequences that really tell you like where we're going with this film. You start off with this voiceover teaching you about the family home, the home of the Borgs. The patriarch of our story, Gustav Borg, played by Stellan Skarsgård. He's a celebrated film director whose career's been in decline. His last feature film was 15 years ago. He's only now back in the relative spotlight due to a documentary retrospective about his past success. And we learn about the history of his home that he was born into, from his parents. And we get introduced to his children, which one of his daughters is our lead, Nora, played by Renate Reinsve, and she is a theater actress in Oslo here. And between the introduction of that family home, which is very distinct visuals, and we really get familiar with several of the rooms inside the house, contrasted with another early scene where Nora's about to go on stage to do a live production to a full house, and she has a stage fright of sorts, and she goes to her scene partner and asks him to slap her, to like get her to lock in to perform, and then they do. We don't really see much of the performance, but I think the early visuals you do see kind of grab you, and from there we're kind of off, and the film really comes into focus when you understand that it's going to be about the dynamic between this father and this daughter, and it feels like such a sophisticated thing because on its surface, the way Gustav comes back into the life of his kids, we learn that he was an absent father during the greater successes of his career. When his daughters were growing up, he just was not around, and now he comes back into the fold, and he's asking Nora to portray his mother, her grandmother, in a film set in. They're going to film it in the family home that he, of course, still owns following the passing of their mother. And on one hand, you're like, okay, this guy's very narcissistic and self-centered. He's going to show up back home and ask his daughter to act in this film after not really being around. We learn that the other sister, Agnes, had previously acted in one of his features when she was a child, but then stopped acting along the way. And then Nora is the one who's now still the working actor, of course, in theater. You're like, okay, I understand this dynamic, and she's going to tell him to F off because she clearly has more of a pain felt from her dad not being around, whereas Agnes seems a lot more, stable in that regard. She's married. She has a young child, a very cute kid with this bleached blonde hair, very Scandinavian. But as the film progresses, it feels like it's a kind of a two-way thing where Gustav is never really portrayed as someone overtly bad. just flawed. And there's, I think, the message about whether you felt the love of your parent, it doesn't mean it wasn't there. It doesn't mean it wasn't felt on the other side of things. And that's like kind of the point of growth. It's very sticky, but it's messy, but it also feels more realistic to how situations like this might exist. And of course, then the film takes its next step when Gustav meets Rachel Kemp, this well-known, famous American actress played by Elle Fanning, meets her at an event, and she actually accepts the role of stepping in to act in his film after Nora had refused. And from there, the movie really shifts back into Nora's POV, where she's watching, the table reads, the pre-production work in the home as they're writing through the script, and she's watching somebody else act as herself. Meanwhile, she's been someone who has struggled with her identity at times, and in general has an emotional variance to how she goes about things. She's someone who's in therapy. She's not, she's single. She doesn't have the family stability of her sister and things like that. And that's where the movie really, I think, really works. And like Reinsve, again, just so good at communicating so much emotion without these really flashy, explosion scenes, right? She doesn't need this expletive-laden script to communicate, I think, really rich, like, emotional pain. Very similar to what she did with Joachim Trier in The Worst Person in the World. She's really tremendous, and I think people will continue to ask to see her in more stuff because I think it really lands. And Stellan Skarsgård, I mean, gosh, between this and Luthen Rail from Andor this year in season 2, he has he ever been better? Like he's has such a warmth, but also such a coldness, but such a presence above all else. It's a tremendous performance. And even the supporting roles, right? Agnes is played by fellow Norwegian actress Igna Ipsdottir Lilius. Apologies for the pronunciation. She's definitely a supporting player in the film, but she has her one key scene where her and Nora really connect and talk about their past and how they felt about things. I think that was huge. Anders Danielsen Lie, who is a staple of Norwegian cinema and Trier's past work. He was also in Worst Person in the World. He plays Nora's fellow scene partner in the play, in the theater company they work at, and they're also having an affair while he's married, and of course she isn't. And I think their conversations about that and how that resolves makes a big impact. Elle Fanning, as I said, notably playing an American, and her, when she realizes that she's not right for this part and feels like it's missing and feels like recognizing that she's a stand-in for his own daughter. And there's more amusing things, right, with her like struggling with Norwegian accent when she tries to use it because she feels out of place, sounding like an American amongst all these other Norwegian actors in the film. I think the character really works. I think her performance really works. Shout out to her between this and a great dual role in Predator Badlands coming out in the same month. It's Elle Fanning season, it feels like, a complete unknown a year ago. She's cooking. Gustav, when he has this scene where he goes and sees his longtime DP, his longtime cinematographer, when he's, scaling up this movie, which he's actually making at Netflix. And he sees his old colleague, and he sees how frail he is, his physical ailments, needing a cane, definitely not being as fit as Gustav seems, even though Gustav himself is 70, as he says in the film. And his feelings of how that goes and whether he wants to continue working with him and feeling his vision could be compromised, right? Something quite callous to treat a friend. And that conversation really really makes a big impact. I think it's very sophisticatedly written. And the way the movie ends, it's suggesting it's going to go one way, and you do eventually get a feeling of where it's going to go. I think the setting of the very last scene, which I don't want to spoil, I really appreciate that setting and what it changes, who's there, who's not there. I liked all of that. But this is just, I think, a really impactful and intelligently told family drama story. Reinsve, Skarsgård, Trier, big winners here. The supporting cast also very strong. Like I said, Elle Fanning, shout out her. Best international feature film nomination, Locke. It's probably battling It Was Just an Accident, but if you think about that field, you have It Was Just an Accident, the Iranian film Via Way of France. You have The Secret Agent from Brazil. You have Sentimental Value from Norway, and you have No Other Choice from South Korea. I think those almost assuredly will be 4 of the 5 nominations, all from notable international filmmakers and from, nations that have rich history of contending at the Oscars. So that's going to be a really great field. I think Sentimental Value is right up there to win it, because it seems like a Best Picture nomination is quite likely as well. This is the premiere film from Neon in this Oscar cycle, and of course we know how their recent success has been. So Sentimental Value, it's going to continue to expand throughout November. I was lucky enough to see it quite early, which was great. But yeah, definitely up there in my top 5 films of the year right now. Really unlike most things I've seen this year, but it's really all you ask for in terms of originality, acting, script, direction, cinematography. Like, there's really nothing to quibble about it, and it's a film with a long runtime that doesn't feel long. I mean, yeah, let me know. What did you think of Sentimental Value? What did you like most about it? Are you rooting for it at the Oscars? Let me know. And for more movie reviews, more film reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.